Hey everybody, and welcome to Example of Play. In this video, I'm going to be talking about Cataclismo, a game that's about to come out. I was able to get my hands on the 1.0 version a little bit early and play around with it, and just wanted to give you my thoughts and impressions about it. And if you haven't played the game before at all, it's kind of a preview, and if you have played it before, I'll talk about what's new in version 1.0 that releases here in just a couple days. Alright, so first up, just briefly, what is Cataclismo? So this is a game where you're building up a base, you're building this little settlement, but every night you're getting attacked by these hordes of horrors, is what they're called in the game, monsters that are pretty horrible looking, that come in waves, in big groups and attack you. And if you don't build up a bunch of defenses to fight them off, you're going to get overwhelmed and destroyed immediately. So that formula sounds pretty familiar. There's been a lot of games like this over the past few years, especially after the release of They Are Billions, where you're fighting against hordes of zombies. We've seen a lot of games in this style. But Cataclismo is another new one, and it does some things that set it apart that make it really enjoyable to play, and we'll talk about those. I think really the thing that sets this game totally apart is that when you're building up your defenses, you're building these fortresses with walls and fortifications like a castle. It has sort of a medieval Spanish vibe to it. And the defenses you're building up are like little Lego pieces. You're building it exactly the way you want it to be. As you play through the game, you unlock more and more pieces that you can use to make your defenses. They get bigger and more complex, more intricate, as much as you want them to be. You can even get artistic in places. Sometimes the terrain is interesting in ways that allow you to build really cool fortifications unique to that terrain. Sometimes it's just flat and you just build wherever you want. Everything in this video is like kind of early game stuff. I've played several hours of the game and got into it, but if you watch like the release trailer, you can see that eventually you can build these humongous fortresses that are really impressive. So just understand everything you're seeing in this video is like on the simple end of things. And if you're like me, you're not always imaginative. You might just build a plain wall to be functional and not very pretty. But sometimes you find some cool stuff. And as you play through the game, you unlock all these little pieces that give bonuses to your troops. So it's not just build big wall, it's that you need to build the wall in ways that take advantage of your troops. Some do better being in high up positions, some do better being closer to level with the enemies. And there's ways to build like little windows or little like porches leaning out from the wall in places that the monsters can't get to, where those lower level units can engage the enemy from close up, get bonuses. There's all kinds of things that you can fold into your design of your building. Or if you're not so great at designing the building, you can actually, the game comes with some pre-made structures that you can grab and just auto build, and you can go onto the Steam Workshop and find things that other players have made. You can create blueprints for yourself, but you can also go and find blueprints that other people have made and uploaded. So if you're not too creative or you're not sure how to get started, you can draw inspiration from other people's creations. And the same goes not just for the defenses, but for within your town itself, because since you're generally working with these really small spaces, you need to be efficient and not just build things, you need to build up. So even like the basic houses for your workers, they can be built on stacked up on top of each other in certain ways. There's certain buildings that needed to be built up high to gather oxygen is one of the resources, because in this game world there's like this mist that's choking the world, so you have to produce oxygen for your people to be able to breathe, and those oxygen things need to be up high. So this creates like a reason to build vertically within your base, not just to save space, but also to collect this resource, which is a really cool twist, and made it interesting to me just to see some of the pre-made structures that I would not have even have thought of that people create with like little winding staircases and just squeezing every bit of productivity out of these small spaces that you can get. Now, this core gameplay is really solid, but what makes this game a great package for replayability, for variety, is that you're playing that core gameplay, but there's a lot of different ways to do it within the game. So there's a campaign where you can play through, and I highly recommend starting with the campaign because it gradually introduces things to you. But it actually has a really good story to it. It's not something that's like totally revolutionary, but it's really well told. So you have these graphics that are kind of minimalistic but stylish in a way, where a very unsaturated color palette, which I found interesting, but actually works really well for the game. It runs super smooth, looks really nice, and it has kind of a bleak, mysterious feel to it, but there's also like this the spark of hope in the characters and in the story that they're going to be able to find their way through this situation they're in and try to save the world. So like I said, it's not necessarily a story totally different from one you've heard before, but it's told really well in this game with little cutscenes and voice acting that's top notch. Much better than you expect for like base building horde survival type game. As you play through the campaign, it's not just building bases in different locations. There's different types of missions. So some you're exploring, some you are building a base, but you need to send units out to do these side objectives that are outside the base, or find optional objectives and give you bonuses if you're able to accomplish them. Each mission you'll get points you can use to unlock perks between missions, so things like upgrading some of your units to be stronger, upgrading your hero Iris, who is the main character of the story. She gradually gets more and more powers, so she becomes kind of like a hero in Warcraft 3, where she's got some special abilities and things. And over the course of the game, your units will all get stronger, but of course you're facing more and more enemies. But I did enjoy that the campaign missions so far, as far as I've got into it, have had really good variety of what you're doing on top of teaching you the game as you go through mission to mission. Besides the campaign, you can play the game in a couple other modes. So one of them is survival mode, which before was kind of just like an endless horde mode. In the 1.0 update, it's more of a roguelike mode, so they started adding things where between every wave you get different perks to pick from. So this can be like free buildings or upgrades or different things to make your unit stronger. Some of them have costs to them, some are free, and so that adds some replayability because you don't know what kind of perks you're going to get. As you go through each wave, you also get points you can use to unlock the different pieces and powers and upgrades. So you might start the survival mode with just the basics, but as you go, you unlock more and more things, but there's like a ton of stuff to unlock, so you can't get it all right away. You have to kind of pick and choose what you're going to need now for the defense that you're planning, and then it just keeps going on and on. But as you get stronger, the enemies get stronger, of course, too. The other mode is a skirmish mode, and so in this one, these are handcrafted maps, where the survival mode is kind of randomly generated maps. The skirmish mode are a set number of waves, a handcrafted map, and then those waves are created by whoever made the map, decided like what's going to be in the different waves to some extent. And so it's more of a, can you beat this level that someone handcrafted? So it's the core gameplay loop. You're building up your base, you're defending against waves, but it's more of a handcrafted challenge versus procedurally generated endless wave mode. And then to add even more replayability on what's already in the game right out of the box, you can go online and find maps that other players have made and download those and play them. So other players can handcraft skirmish maps. They can even make survival mode maps, so you can grab those from the workshop. They're easy to download. There's hundreds of them. And then you have more and more maps to play on that were handcrafted by other players. And of course, these can be, really difficult or really interesting, fun stuff that other people made. And if you want to try your own hand at it, the level editor, I played around with it a little bit, is really easy to use. You just go in there, you can create terrain, you can create what you want that world to look like, where the player's at, and then the different types of waves that are going to come at them. You can make them kind of randomized or very specific. So it's pretty easy to make your own map too if you wanted to do that and upload it. And so this game, the core gameplay, really solid, and then the amount of replayability is huge because between the scenario, which has like 16, 17 levels, you have the endless survival mode, you have skirmish maps, you can download other players' maps. So there's a ton of content in this game available to you on top of the really solid gameplay. So let's look at what is new in the 1.0 update. So the game's been in early access since July or so of last year, so it's been available to play a pretty substantial chunk of the game, but this 1.0 update does add a lot to it. It adds on 6 more scenarios for the campaign mode, so this is the final act of the game, lets you finish out the campaign. It overhauls the survival mode, so like I mentioned before, it was just kind of an endless horde mode where you just kept facing more and more waves on a random map. Now there is the roguelike part of it, so you're picking from different upgrades and adding some more strategy to it, a little more dynamic how it plays out depending on which things you pick to unlock as you go. It adds a new whole new biome to the game. So I think there were 3 before, now there's 4, and the last one adds new gameplay mechanics. So it's called the depths. You're basically like underground, but it's very dark. So there's new structures that you have to use to spread light through the area, because you can't really fight the monsters in the dark. So not only do you have to worry about everything else from before, now you have to keep the areas lit up. So as you expand out, as you explore out into the world, you're going into the dark. So you have to bring light to the darkness, which is cool. And then there's new types of enemies, so like tougher ones that can pop up from time to time. The main character Iris, there's a new version of her with different types of skills and abilities. And then there's some new of the skirmish maps. They added some for the new biome. And then there's a bunch of quality of life improvements, bug fixes. So a pretty big upgrade to the game if you've played it before, you've had it in early access for a while or seen it before, or if you're looking at buying it new, it's going to come out here in a day or two. You're going to get a really solid package with this game, and I've had a lot of fun with it in the short amount of time I spent with it. The vibe of the game is really cool. I like it. The style of the graphics, how it looks and feels, the music. Like I mentioned before, it has kind of it's bleak on the surface, but there's like this hope to it. All of your units are they're trying to survive. They want to get through this, which I thought was, I don't know, it just feels good playing this game, trying to win, fight back these horrors. It's like in this face of hopeless darkness and danger, all of your characters and soldiers, they're giving it they're all to survive this experience, which I just like the feel of the game. All right, so I think that's about all I had to say on the game. I think it's a very solid entry into its little subgenre of building a settlement, building defenses, surviving against waves of enemies, and trying to push out and expand and get stronger. Its twist that you build vertically a lot, that you are building your defenses like with little Lego pieces, making them intricate where you want them to, making them artistic where you want them to, or just worrying about function over everything. But it's a game where it encourages you to both be creative and focus on the gameplay mechanics, because the two can kind of go hand in hand. Being creative, you can create some really effective structures, and then if you're not creative, you can just go borrow ones that other people have made and uploaded, because there's some really cool stuff out there. And then you can just one click and it makes some really complex, very efficient structure for you, and also stuff that looks cool. So that's about all I had to say on it. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned, subscribe, like, and come back for more strategy, tactics, simulation, gaming, and more here at Example of Play.